ladies and gentlemen, I'm Meadsy69 and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to look at the Hori Type 1, the Tier 8 Japanese tank destroyer, the new one in the game. It's okay, I don't think, there's nothing special about it, but it's okay, Now, I've added on blitz stars, I've added a few of the other TDs that it has similar playstyle. You have the Ferdinand, the WZ111, the Jagdpanther 2, and the SU101. Now, compared to these, stat-wise, that is pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Apart from the Jagdpanther 2, with the DPM 2,794, so it does have more DPM than tanks like the Ferdinand, which is probably it's very similar to the Ferdinand, except for it is a lot quicker. Does have slightly more penetration, so the penetration is actually quite good. Not as good as the SU101, but it is quite good at 248. It does only have a 400 alpha gun, and the reload is 8.59 seconds. 120mm gun, and the shell velocity is pretty good, better than the rest of them at 950. Aim time is again pretty good at 2.08, and the dispersion is slightly worse than them all, except for the SU101 at 0.326, and it does have 8 degrees of gun depression. The speed is really nice at 45 kilometers, so very similar to the Jagdpanther 2. I think the Jagdpanther 2 is 10 kilometers an hour quicker, but it plays more like a Ferdinand. Looks like kind of like a Ferdinand. Armor wise, the armor, I mean, it has 190mm on the hull, which isn't bad, but it is flat. There's some flat spaces. It's quite a flat tank. The front plate is, you can get it quite, it is quite troll. It is quite troll. If you wiggle, if you angle, you can get bounces, but you can't rely on the bounces. It's not a tank to bounce like the Ferdinand, for instance. That's quite a bouncy tank, where this is, it's a hit and miss. It's a hit and miss. Now we're going to show you just 2 battles that I have had in this tank so far, and I'll let you know what I actually think of the tank and whether it is worth grinding. So this battle on Hellas is actually my first game. I mean, there's nothing special about the game, but I thought I wanted to add just the first game to see the play style of it. I didn't really know how to play it, if I should camp, if I should push, but you can see it's quite a big tank, and it's just so flat around the edges at the back. If you get side shots into you, you're going to get HE'd from the big guns. So you have to be careful of the medium tanks flanking around. And I personally, it's a very difficult tank. I mean, the accuracy's okay. The accuracy is okay. I think it's definitely a tank where you can sit at the back. You can get the sniping shots in and then rush in later on. Or because of the speed of the tank, it can be also a tank where you just support your heavies. I wouldn't say so much support your mediums, because I don't think it's just quick enough. I don't think the traverse is quick enough to help support the medium. I definitely think it's a heavy supporting tank. And you're going to see here, I mean, I am a little bit disappointed in the tank, not because it's a bad tank, but the Chi2 SPG, the Tier 7 version, I thought was actually really good, like really good. And then to go up to this tank next, it was a little bit disappointing, because the Tier 7 is much better. I honestly think the Tier 7 is much better than this. So it does get better. It does get better. I mean, I played the Tier 9, and you'll see the Tier 9 probably tomorrow. And I'm actually really loving the Tier 9. But the Tier 7 is, I think, one of the best in the line, as I said in the video. And this, it's just, for me, it's kind of boring. It is kind of boring. And luckily I did have enough free XP to grind, not even grind the line, just ace the tank and then get the tier 9. But I'm not saying it's a bad tank. I'm not saying it's a bad tank. I just think it will get bored after a while of playing it. If you've played the Ferdinand, if you've played all the tanks pretty much that I've showed you at the beginning, then it is quite disappointing. So not disappointing, but quite boring because it's the same kind of gameplay, does around the same DPM, but as I've said, it's not a bad tank. It's quite a good tank if I'm honest, but I'm just not loving it as much as I thought I would. And it is an ugly tank. It's an ugly looking tank. So this game, I mean, we've only got just over 2.5k damage. We win on supremacy points. So I thought, you know what, that's not bad for the first game. And normally the first few games in a new tank I don't do as well in because I like to get to know the tank. I don't want to just sit at the back. With it being a turretless TD, I didn't want to just sit at the back. I want to know what the strengths of the tank are. If I can push, if I get wrecked the first game, then so be it, I get wrecked. But at least I then know that it's not a tank to push, or it's not a tank to go with the mediums, etc. So I thought that was not bad as the first game. I didn't bounce hardly anything. So pushing, I mean, as I've said, you can push, and unlike the Ferdinand, yes, it does have armor, but it's not that great armor as it once was because people now just switched to Pramo. But I definitely do think it's best played pushing with your heavies. Sit behind them. Not at the front. Don't sit at the front, right at the front. Just sit behind your heavies. And me playing it like that, I have done a lot better than I've been doing where I'm sitting at the back camping. Although if you do sit at the back camping, your speed is quite nice. So you can play it as a supporting camping or sniping tank, and if you need to get somewhere else, if you need to get around the map, then it is quite quick to do that, and it does do it fairly quickly. So this game here, I mean, we've got nearly 1,000 damage or 900 damage. The T49 has taken out our Borzik, and you can see our heavies now, or our heavy and other TD, has started to push. So I'm going to push with them. I mean, I'm not going to sit at the back. Luckily, the EXP on the enemy team didn't want to know, and you can just see if you wiggle, start wiggling, you can get some bounces. And that issue 101 doesn't have the gun depression, but it does have the penetration, and we were still able to get a bounce from him. So we're going to come up to the rear of this EXP, we're going to switch to the HE, and we are going to clear him with 517 damage to put us on 2 kills and 2.2k damage with just them 3 tanks that are ahead of me left to go. The Chi-2, the VK, and a T49. Now, I am more worried about that T49. Now, with this gun, when I said the accuracy, stat-wise, isn't as good as the other tank, so it still feels pretty good, and I seem to hit more snapshots than I thought I would. I mean, the snapshots I've done a few times in this where I thought, wow, and that's just not this tank, it's almost the whole line, and I like the accuracy on these things. But you've got to remember, luckily I do get away with this one here thanks to my T28 Defender with that T49, because the Traverse don't get caught out in the open, and I say that with every turretless TD, but some are quicker than others. Where the Traverse isn't great. The speed is good, but the Traverse isn't great. So don't get caught out in the open. Just when I thought I was going to rack up a bit more damage, the Smasher comes in for the ammo rack. But still, 3.6k damage. That was, I think, my actual second game, or I think it was my second game. So not a bad tank. It's not a bad tank. Easy to ace. This was the day it got released. It's definitely worth grinding. It is definitely worth grinding, especially if you haven't played the Ferdinand and the J Panther, because once you get to the tier 9, it does get much better. But don't rush to tier 7, because the tier 7 is better. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. I'm Meadsy, and I'll catch you soon.